Hey everybody, we're here at the Philadelphia Regionals. We're finishing up the Top Cut Masters is going on behind us. Here with Cary, also known as Bulbasaur, one of the members of Team Compendium on the rules team with Pokemon. Kim, give us a little background on how you got involved in Pokemon and what you've been doing the past almost 20 years.
I got into this because my children were into the Pokemon cards during the fad, and if you want the details on that, you can do a Google search on Pokemon Saved My Marriage, and you'll get the tongue-in-cheek full details
I'll put the link in here
on how I became involved. It's been a lot of fun over the years to play. I've learned a lot of things and gotten a lot of great friends from organizing and judging, and here we are from 2001 to 2018, 17 years later.
All right, cool. So today we're going to be talking a bit about how a judge can educate themselves, what steps to take to become a better judge. You have a number of points you want to go over, Kim?
Yeah.
What would you like to start with?
Well, I think we can start with the fundamentals, which is to play. A judge can educate themselves by playing. If you're a good player, at some point you may decide for various reasons that you want to judge. And I would encourage someone who's coming from that direction to continue to play, because the game moves and moves on, it changes, and continuing to play is a way to stay current, not only with the metagame, but also kind of some of the fashions or trends in how people play or how they deal with each other at the table. You may be coming from the other end, like some of us who are in the assistant soccer coach syndrome, where you have to become a soccer coach in order for your children to play, because otherwise there's not enough coaches to have a team. And so, that's kind of the end I came into it, was I became an organizer so that my children could play. And if you've come from that standpoint, it's really good for you as a judge to play and learn to play. And so kind of my goal is not to be deckless, as it were, and to have a deck and to play as a judge, because it helps keep me sharp as a judge. And I think it's important for all of us to play at least somewhat. And there's really no excuse now with Pokemon Trading Card Game Online.
Yeah, very easy. Okay, cool. So let's talk about the next thing then, asking questions. Asking questions,
yeah, absolutely. We are really fortunate right now to have a lot of great colleagues in the game. And we learn from people who have been in the game longer than us and people who have been in the game shorter than us. Everybody has their tips and tricks, and a lot of them are really valid and worth putting in your toolbox. It might be that you need to run some hypothetical situations just to kind of get the lay of the land with a particular card or with a way to do things in a tournament. Run them by your colleagues. Ask questions. So that's hypothetical situations you might want to look at. The other thing is that as you judge, you're going to run into real situations, and maybe you had to come up with a solution at the time, and you want to kind of run that past other colleagues and so forth. So when you're judging, you can when you get a little bit of downtime, you can ask your colleague, what would you do in this situation? A lot of times too, you're in the middle of judging and you've got to make a decision. And if you're at the point where you're like, ooh, should I do this or not? It's good, even if just to turn to the next judge next to you and run it by them, because two heads are better than one.
So, and also, if you're in a situation where you may be at a smaller event where you don't have colleagues, you're the judge, get to know some people and get phone a friends.
Phone a friend, and the latest thing is to use a real-time chat like Discord,
right,
to connect with people. So it's good to have a phone list, and like Mike always says, phone a friend is right. a great thing to do.
And see if you can find yourself a mentor. There's people out there. Generally, the people who are good judges are very happy to mentor people who want to learn.
Share their knowledge.
All right. So, what would be the next thing somebody should be looking to do?
I think every judge ought to have certain documents in their judge library, as it were. And these are not things that you just throw on the shelf, but it's things that you constantly consult. And some of these documents, they all receive regular updates, and some of them more frequently than others. I'll just talk about 3. Sometimes and often overlooked is the Pokemon TCG rulebook. These used to come inside of theme decks, but now it's available in the rules and resources section of the Pokemon.com website.
Right.
Download one, have an offline copy of it. You don't have to necessarily print it out, but keep it on your phone or tablet so that you can reference basic game actions.
So I have a link to Google Drive on my phone, so I have these documents stored in Google Drive.
Right, and if you have Google Drive has a feature like a lot of online storage that says keep a local copy. It's called pinning, or it used to be called pinning in Google Drive. Make sure you keep a local copy, because a lot of times you're not going to have Wi-Fi or cell service at an event.
Right.
So TCG rulebook for sure. Of course, if you're judging, you need organized play penalty guidelines. These get updated once or twice a year.
Quarterly, I think they're doing it now.
Okay, quarterly. And it's good to go over those when they get updated, and they usually provide a summary of what's been changed. The other thing is that the way I was taught to judge and the way I teach people to judge is when you've got a question for your head judge or a colleague, you have already looked at the penalty guidelines and you've already assessed where you think the situation falls. And so when you present it, you're presenting it with what the situation is and what you think the guidelines apply, and you're checking it with your colleague. And that's the way to deal with the penalty guidelines. So the TCG rulebook, the penalty guidelines, and finally, near and dear to my heart, is the trading card game rulings compendium, which is done by Team Compendium and Pokemon R&D. Team Compendium kind of poses the questions, and we sometimes suggest the answers. We always suggest the answers, but the people who are really giving the answers are the official folks from Pokemon R&D. Sometimes they reach back to the folks in Japan, the creatures, to understand what the real ruling is on the card, and you're going to always get official card rulings, and indeed even some gameplay rulings from the Pokemon TCG compendiums. You should have the mobile version bookmarked on your phone, and it's good to download a PDF of the compendium in case you're offline. Right,
yeah, so the key word there is official. All the rulings in that document are considered by Pokemon to be official, so that's important. Okay, so you've got some mentor relationships or some people to talk with. You've got resources that you're using. What else can you do?
Well, I think to make a distinction from asking questions, observing or watching the other judges. So apart from asking questions, I think it's great to observe other judges at work. There's things that you can pick up from them by watching what they do and how they approach the job, working with their colleagues, working with players that are better caught than taught. And so when you're judging with other judges and you see them do something neat, make a mental note of it and consider how you might adapt it and put it into your toolbox as a judge. Also, when you're playing, if you receive a ruling, think what you liked and didn't like about receiving that ruling as a player, and again, adapt that so that it works for you in your style, and make it available in your toolbox.
All right, so we decided to move over here because we wound up sitting right where they were about to start the award ceremony for the juniors and seniors who won the tournament. So that's going on in the background. All right, so watching judges,
other judges,
learning from what you're observing. Anything else you wanted to say on that point?
Well, the really cool thing about the trading card game, from the beginning of my involvement at the world's level in 2004, has been the fact that it's a worldwide game, and that means that as judges we have a worldwide series of colleagues, and it's not always possible to be with these folks to observe or ask them questions. However, for a very long time we've had the opportunity to interact with each other online. The early days of Team Europe, with people like Escovestre and stuff like that, Eder Z, who are still around, we had forums where we interacted together and we discussed questions of how it's done in Europe and questions of how it's done in North America and so forth, and that continues. And so I think it's really important as a judge to be involved and at least reading the discussions that take place on the Professor Forum, in the organized play boards, the forums on the PokeGym.net. There are other forums online. We have, again, there's the judge Discord that's out there, which is kind of more of a chat. But what that does is that lets you get a broader perspective than your local area. Like if you don't travel, you can kind of get out, and it also lets you get deeper discussions. Like if you're asking and answering a question on the floor, you can only go so far. But if you're working on a question online with your colleagues, that discussion might take place over several days or several weeks even, and you can get really deep into an issue and learn and grow on it. If you're interested, that is a fantastic way to dig in and also to help out, because what you'll find is you'll find people asking questions that you could answer, and it's a great way to be involved and serve your judge community.
Right, and also you'll get notices. People will highlight when things get updated, when articles are written that are worth learning about, then we'll go over things. So it's just a good way to stay on top of what's going on.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I mean, I'd like to just summarize. It's 5 areas, right?
Sure.
Playing, don't stop playing. At least do TCGO. Asking questions about real and hypothetical situations from your colleagues. Referencing documents, have that library, have it available offline, but know where to reach out to it online as well. Watching and observing other judges is different than asking them questions, and it gives you some real repertoire. And finally, participating in online discussions. Those are great ways to grow as a judge.
All right, sounds good. Thanks very much, Ken. All right, take care. Thanks for joining us, and we want to ask people to check out, we'll have links to the various resources that Ken mentioned, and check out some of our other podcasts that cover more specific areas, and we'll see you in the future. Thanks.